we I don't know the words to that song. So shabba 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 shabba.
Ta-da!
You do now.
You don't have to hum it. You don't need to know the words.
Okay, we should be live right now. That was fun doing that reading with the kids, though. I've got to proofread the story better next time, because that one went awry. Okay. Know the words to that song. So shabba coming across kind of hot.
You're all shabba 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 shabba. I'm fairly certain that is not the word.
We're just getting ready to start up doing a words to that song. So shabba coming across kind of hot. Yeah. All right. And one more check over here.
Over yonder.
Yeah. I need to get new batteries for my mouse. I need to get mice batteries.
Funny story. I bought a wireless mouse once.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out mine was the alpha mouse.
Uh-huh.
And so I would sit in conference meetings and I would take over everybody else's computers.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
My boss couldn't figure out for the longest time what was happening. Why was all this clicking going on? And at first I didn't know what was happening either, but then I picked up on it, so I would do it intentionally. And then he took my alpha mouse.
You had like the mouse from the Lord of the Rings.
I did. I had the leader.
The mouse to rule all mices.
It was a mystery mouse tool.
How do you pluralize mouse? Is it meese? Mises?
I think it's just mice.
Really? They went boring on us?
Yeah. English.
All right. So today we got some news, but we're going to talk about this is something that I've been grinding out in my mind. This is unscripted, but talk about like if you wanted to kind of end the world as it's laid out in front of you and gain dominance. This is just a fictional show.
Yes.
Just a fictional show. But
we're speaking completely in hypotheticals.
Yes.
This is hypothetically how Jared would end the world.
Yeah.
And I guess I would start with, I guess you would need to know why you want to end the world to determine.
Well, not end it. I think end the way it is and set myself up to be in ultimate control of it.
The Overlord?
Yeah, like if I was Dr. Evil, he didn't want to destroy the world. He wanted to be rich and the Lord of it, right?
Yeah.
I thought I should buy like a gray, collarless suit to wear for this show and hold the cat on my lap. But we've got lots of news to talk about at the same time because there's some cool stuff coming out. There's a couple tragedies.
Some say fire, some say ice. I say either would suffice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, very true.
Mm.
Very, very true.
I don't know if I'd end it with like a cataclysmic event. I guess if I were a powerful being looking down upon humans, I might just be like, okay, we need another ice age.
That's the big question. Well, and I would say either could lead into either. Also, if you caused like the meteorite hits, throws a lot of dust up into the air, well, then an ice age would probably follow. And then again, there's speculation right now that the last major ice age was kind of reversed because a meteor hit the ice cap and melted a load of ice, which threw a lot of water vapor in the air, and water vapor is a greenhouse gas, and bam, next thing you know, it heats up and levels out at where it is now. But on a historic level, the earth has not always cruised around at this temperature it's at now,
right?
Or at the gas levels in the atmosphere it is now. So either might do, but this is more if you wanted to
take over
end society, if you wanted to break society. And this is a long flow, and I'll be pulling some history into this one. For some of you that are familiar with the history I'll be talking about, feel free to write me and, throw a message up and correct me right then and there. And if you're watching after, write me and let me know where I may have got it wrong or where I did not go deep enough. But we're not going to go too deep. This is kind of a loose overview. And and sorry, no special effects. I put this show together. I started about 40 minutes ago. Anyways, we got to start off with some
news. Okay. So it's in India. It's Bihar Nalanda district.
Let me go ahead and do a share.
This gentleman, 65 years old. This is a real story. This gentleman, 65 years old, is sitting on his porch. According to the police reports, he was under the influence of alcohol, hanging out, relaxing, when a baby viper come out from, I'm guessing, underneath the porch or somewhere near the porch and bit him on the leg. The guy's name is Mato. What Mato did...
Go ahead and tell us where he lives.
Okay, so he's a resident of the Mahodan village in Chandi.
Yeah, in the Bihar Nalanda district.
In the Bihar Nalanda district. Now, this viper comes out, bites him on the leg, and as any, well-governed, emotionally,
drunk person
would do, he then captured this viper and began to chew on it in an attempt to get vengeance. So he picked up the viper in this fit of rage and started chewing on the viper. And the viper bit him on the face more than 10 times and killed him.
I wonder if the viper made it.
Well, prior to him dying, he hung the snake.
Yeah.
To let all the other little baby snakes know not to mess with him from a tree.
And then fell dead right under the tree. But was the viper alive, or did he
I don't know if he killed the viper.
It doesn't say in the story, but
yes,
that is alcohol-induced fun.
I've been that angry before, and so I empathize with Mato. I don't know if I would have expended my anger in that direction, chewing on a snake. I mean, I may have kicked the porch or, put my hand through a window or something, but chewing on the snake, I think, proved to be a bad way to use up his emotional energy.
That.
Can you imagine, though? His poor family is watching this take place. They have to make the police report.
But they're scared of him because he's a mean drunk. So stay back.
They're probably like, yeah, I told you, man.
He's out there.
That snake, I'm telling you. That's what happens in this house.
All right. You guys ready to kick this off?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to the founding of this nation. The United States is really the first example of self-governance combined with strong property rights, limited government, and all this other stuff, which caused an economic explosion. Mm-hmm. When you allowed people back then to explore different means of making money and invention and all that other stuff, it caused an economic explosion. And there have been times such as, we started out with a central bank right after the Revolutionary War, the Bank of the United States. And the Bank of the United States would lend money, much as it does now. In the Constitution, it says only Congress can make money, but the Bank of the United States would lend money to Congress at a cost, and then, then it would be distributed. And Andrew Jackson, he became president, and actually his second term mostly was ran on him shutting down the Bank of the United States, the first central bank, because it was a form of usury. And they would they would make money out of nothing and then collect it and bring it back. And at the end of this, I want to round this show off talking about some of the faults with our banking system as we have it now. And this is our banking system across the board. And I know this might be a boring show for some of you, but I don't care because I like history and I like this stuff. So anyways,
and it'd be kind of cool to figure out who's taken over.
Yeah, the United States became the largest economic driver in the world. There's a reason why we went from a nation that was a backwater fighting pirates in 1802 to in the 1900s, we were the nation for diplomacy, for money loans, for inventions. If another nation wanted to have something built or invented or made, they came to us, much like other countries go to China now. China's under a different system though, and we should go into that later as well, maybe a different show. But ours was a situation that was driven by the populace, not by government and not by other things like that, which is an interesting system. It's the first time in like written history that this stuff was allowed. So we fast forward to 1913 and the Federal Reserve Act is put in December 23rd, 1913. There's a whole conspiracy surrounding the Federal Reserve, and it involves the Titanic, that everyone that was opposed to the Federal Reserve Act was on the Titanic. Also, the people who, or at least one person that was, that was supposed to be on the Titanic, that was pro Federal Reserve Act, all of a sudden says, nah, I'm not going to take this ride. Titanic seats. And that leaves a big conspiracy theory that those people were murdered so that they couldn't voice their opinion. Now, I want you to pay attention to the dates on this. It's December 23rd, 1913, and it happened at night. Everyone in the Senate and in the Congress and the House, all that, were at home for the Christmas exodus from the Capitol when they signed this in. So it was done under the cover of dark, and there was a fight constantly after that, but that fight gets weaker because all the money's already in the Federal Reserve. It's already there, it controls it. So you can't really go up to that fight and then go back to your state and say, yeah,
now we're broke.
We couldn't go away from it. We were stuck with it. So, that gets passed through. And then shortly after that, we enter World War I on the side of Great Britain. And World War I, if any of you have studied it, is one of those kind of confusing wars. Like, how did it start? It started because there was a whole bunch of, defense treaties signed around Europe where it pitted neighbor against neighbor for an ally with another. Like France was friends with Russia across Germany. Germany was friends with Austro-Hungary, sitting in the middle. Great Britain was friends with none of them, but it was friends with Belgium, and it was friends with Holland, and friends with those. And so it was a cacophony. And it's argued the reason the United States, entered World War I was because the people that we bankrolled the most, we bankrolled everyone, but the people we bankrolled the most, the English, stood to lose, and we wouldn't get paid back. So we kind of entered to bolster. So the young men that were sent over as fodder to ensure the British ones so that we could get paid back. Of course, this is not a history class, and you're not going to get a degree from this. So you can fact check me all you want. Doesn't matter. I'm just a almost evolved caveman on the internet. So anyways, so the Federal Reserve comes in, and then they take over banking, and they start issuing the money at cost. So they issue the money, and then we have to pay them back with interest.
So they basically did the same thing that the Bank of the United States did.
The same thing, maybe even a little worse. And then another thing is started, and this is an old thing. It's called fractional reserve banking. And how that works, I need like a whiteboard to draw this out. So
the professor.
I want you to picture that I am a bank, and I have 10 people who bank with me, and they all give me $1. That means I should have $100 or $10 to loan out. But under fractional reserve banking, I get to loan out more than I hold. So that means I only have to have a fraction of the money in reserve. Reserve is in my vault. So what I do is off that $10, I will loan out $100, making the commission back or the rents back on that money lent of $100, which I never had to begin with. It is money that is invented out of nowhere, right? And sometimes shady banks, Betsy's also a bank. She's got $100 in her coffers, but she wants to lend out $10,000, which means she has to have $8,000 in there. So we will lend each other money back and forth up until we've boosted both of our vaults, which are non-existent. Remember, in the beginning, she has 10, I have 10, but we've boosted up to where she can give out that massive loan, get the money back, get the payment back for money that never existed, which devalues the money that's out there. And it's quite frankly, that's where bank runs come in. The bank runs of 21, the bank runs of the Great Depression, were people went to the bank and said, hey, I put money in there, I want my money back. We don't have it, because they lent it and more out. It was gone. It was never there to begin with. And
that's a scary thought.
Bankrupt a nation. Well, and we're sitting on that right now.
Yeah.
Especially since we've gone digital, it's gotten even easier for them to complete this.
Well, yeah, because now they can transfer numerals without anything that backs it up over and over and over and over again to, not just our country, but other countries.
Yeah. And this is where you see people wanting to go to a cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin, and things like that, because, especially Bitcoin, where it's on a blockchain, it's a recorded event. So everything that's done is recorded. Like I do one thing, it's recorded across 1,000 computers. And so I can't cheat it, because I'd have to cheat it on each individual computer.
But aren't some Bitcoin mined, so they're not backed up by anything either? I mean, it's intellectual property.
Bitcoin is mined. It is not backed up by anything, but neither is the dollar.
Yeah. So
neither is. Now, we could go to a gold-based currency, and we had that, and that comes a little further in the show, why that went away and where it went awry. And that does come up. That's in the show. First, we've got another news story. So Joe Rogan's under fire.
I love Joe.
Joe Rogan caught, we're reading from MMAfighting.com. I'm going to go ahead and share this on the screen because, there seems to be a narrative right now.
You think?
And it's,
100%.
So Joe Rogan caught COVID-19, and he is unvaccinated. Of course, Joe Rogan is an extreme specimen of health and things like that, which I'm sure helped. So he went and, in his words, they threw the kitchen sink at it. He went to he's probably got an army of doctors, but he said that he went on all kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies. Don't know what that is. What's monoclonal mean? Clonos?
Yeah.
A single clonal?
It's basically a duplication of somebody's antibodies.
Okay. So he got an injection of kind of antibodies. Like, all right, ivermectin, the evil word that if we are canceled off of YouTube today will be because I just said that. And we're going to live to YouTube right now. If you get the chance, go follow us on YouTube. We want some numbers. How many like it? All the stuff. Subscribe. Z-Packs, which everyone I'm sure is zithromycin, I think is what it is.
Yep.
prednisone, which is a steroid that they use to treat autoimmune disorders often. I don't know what else they treat with that, but my experience is from autoimmune diseases. He also got a NAD drip. When I was a kid growing up, NADs were something different. I don't want that. A vitamin drip. And he did that 3 days in a row, and he feels great. So it sounds like he had a great recovery. Now, from what I understand, this is the same treatment that Donald Trump had when he contracted the virus.
Yep. All of those things, I would argue, were not concepts that were made up by Joe Rogan. I believe that he's very well versed, and I think that,
and he's also at least a multimillionaire,
right?
So
and these things are available to everyone.
Well, I have heard that I have heard people have had ivermectin prescriptions.
Yes, you can get
for
one.
Other stuff
Since 1984,
and pharmacies won't fill them right now.
So ivermectin, to give the history, was it was actually discovered in 1975. It was
the year I was born.
Put into medical practice in 1984, and it is still listed to this day on the World Health Organization as one of the essential drugs. It has less side effects than ibuprofen, and that has been studied. It's been used. They use it for all kinds of things. What it basically does is interrupts that immune response that you get with malaria, that you get with rheumatoid arthritis, that you get with this hyperactive immune response that commonly causes the cytokine storm that they're seeing with the coronavirus. So ivermectin always has been a proven drug. It was until this pandemic. It was an over-the-counter medication that you could buy in a lot of countries. It only wasn't here in the United States because we don't have things like malaria. So,
well, we did have ivermectin here. Now,
we did have it, but it was prescribed. It wasn't something that you could just go into a drugstore and buy.
Now, it is also sold at veterinary clinics.
Correct.
And people who own livestock will have 55-gallon drums of this stuff.
Correct. Because it has a lot of protective effects for horses.
They just, horses and cows, if they have an abscess show up on a horse, they automatically, they just start drenching the horse.
It's a paste. It's a paste. They put it inside their mouth. It's an extremely safe drug.
Well, why is the media talking about how he's using horse?
The spin on it is
when I'm sure when he got it from a doctor, it wasn't. It was prescribed as people medicine, not horse medicine. Did the doctor go down to
the veterinary clinic?
The vet?
No, and that is the spin on it. They're trying to discourage people from using it. The conspiracy is because in order to get an emergency use authorization for a vaccine, the emergency use authorization, as it's stated in the bylaws, says, in order for us to give you emergency use of an untested, unstudied vaccination, there cannot be any effective treatments. So they have to eliminate the effective treatments or stigmatize. This is the conspiracy. They have to stigmatize these effective treatments, calling them, it's a horse drug, and you shouldn't take, things for that are made for vets. I agree. You probably should not go to your local livestock supply and buy the medication in the horse form, and not because of what's in it, but because the formulation is intended for a large animal.
Or you need to do the math after. Horse weighs 1,200 pounds.
Well, and we have to recognize that things that we ingest are also processed differently. So the additives in it could be, could upset your stomach, could upset your intestinal lining. I think it's important to recognize that it's probably not a safe option. I also want to recognize that people are scared, and they are doing this because
Well, when the
they have
pharmacies,
pulled them from the pharmacy.
when a pharmacy won't
Yes.
fulfill your prescription card that was filled out by a doctor under doctors. I mean, it's not like,
Yeah.
let's face it, people don't steal prescription packets to get antibiotics.
No.
They generally seek something a little
Correct.
more stringent.
And this is a safe drug.
So
I mean, it really honestly is. It honestly is.
I don't know anything about any of it. I don't know anything. I myself had coronavirus, and mine wasn't bad. So I took vitamin C.
Yeah. And
my doctor talked to me on the phone prior to the test and never did a follow-up, and that threw me off. I would think if there was a dangerous disease in my body, the doctor would have done a follow-up.
Yes.
And that, I think, threw me off. How is it that this is such a big deal and such a ever expansive thing that my personal doctor that I've gone to see for 10 years, who I went to them and got the test done. The lady in a spacesuit came into my car. They sprayed it. There was gas that lit out of the door like E.T. ship landed. They came out to my car, stuck a big old Q-tip in my head, scrambled my brains for a minute, and the doctor never once called me back. Well, and I was wondering to myself, if this is that big of a deal and I had it, you'd think my doctor would call and say, look, you've got it. What, let me get you a prescription. Mind you have to have someone else go fill this, but let me get you a prescription for a cough medicine with codeine.
Right.
Or here's those fancy lozenges that cost $5 a piece. Anything. The doctor never called me back. And I'm not blaming my doctor for this. I'm blaming we have built a hysteria. And that ties into what we're talking about today.
Yes.
So back to the money thing. And I know this show might get boring, but honestly, you should take notes. This is what is robbing this nation of its wealth. If you have kids, if you have grandkids, this is where your grandkids are going to look around and have nothing. So keep paying attention. Well, I want to talk about Smedley Butler for a minute. Smedley Butler was the highest decorated Marine in history. He was a general in the United States Marine Corps at the turn of the century. He wrote a book called War is a Racket, and we're going to read a small piece of that. I'm going to share it on the screen. This comes right from his Wikipedia. If you get the chance to get Smedley Butler's, it's more of a pamphlet. I think I've got a copy somewhere. It's like 10, 15 pages thick. It's not a hard read. It's kind of Smedley Butler's.
Did he die soon after writing this?
He did not. There was another thing that came out surrounding Smedley Butler, and we will talk about that. This is Smedley Butler speaking. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service, and during that period, I spent most of my time as a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I helped make Mexico and especially Tampico safe for American oil interests. In 1914, I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenue. I helped the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1902 through 1912. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for the American sugar interests in 1916. I helped make Honduras right for the American fruit companies in 1903. In China in 1927, I helped see to it that Standard Oil went on its way unmolested. Looking back on it, I may have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was operate his racket in 3 districts. I operated on 3 continents. Now,
to reflect on this, it's an interesting paradigm to shift from our military being the might of our nation to protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic, when in fact it has been leveraged to bolster capitalism and take resources from other countries.
But it's not capitalism. If you are familiar with economic models, using the government to enforce your using the government to force your ideals on anyone is not capitalism. And using businesses to force the government ideals on anyone is not capitalism. Capitalism is simply the means of gaining money to start something. All right. When you drift outside of that, when you start using force, you start entering things such as socialism or fascism. Fascism is where the government and corporations work together for the benefit of society.
So that would be more fascist.
That is fascist. Socialism is where you don't own the means of production. So businesses, this computer, I always wondered how models would work in that. But the means of production, the means to make money isn't owned by the people. It's owned by the state and or conglomerate of whoever, it's all just words. They all mean the same thing in the end.
Okay, so do you believe that this is all like a long game plan?
Maybe.
To like step
Maybe.
1,
have you ever heard of
create the Federal Reserve? Step 2, fractionalize your banking system. Step 3, go into other countries to secure our interests.
What did Rockefeller go into after he left oil?
I don't know.
Pharmaceuticals.
Oh yes, I knew that. He actually created the schools. He played the long game.
Well, yeah, he created the schools, and matter of fact, there is not one pharmaceutical on earth that doesn't have a byproduct of oil in it.
Yeah.
So those people who want to get rid of oil, I want you just to look around where you're sitting now.
Yeah.
If it's plastic, food is carried in it, imagine what would have to go away.
Poof. Yeah. Be sitting on the dirt.
So anyways, we'll keep going. So FDR's running for president. There is a big business kind of planned coup, and they go to Smedley Butler to now FDR was a Democrat, and I'm not a fan of FDR. I know that's nasty words. If Grandma, if you're listening to this, so sorry. I love you still, but FDR was a POS. Anyways, there was a big business coup that was planned to be taken out. Smedley Butler was who they chose to lead their, I think they called it the bonus army.
He was the hitman.
Well, they wanted him to lead the army and lead the military side of the coup. And he actually went to the Senate and he said, this is what's going on, laid it out. And not a lot was done about it. I think a couple of guys had to go speak to Congress about how evil they were. But nobody in charge got in trouble. FDR did some good things, but the bad thing FDR did, and this is all leading up to where we were. So in 1929, now after the Federal Reserve is brought up in 1913, they said they were doing that to make it so that we don't have any more crashes in the market because we've gone through a crash about every 10 years. Since they've come up, we've gone through a crash about every 10 years. And they haven't changed anything. They haven't changed anything. The collapses have only gotten bigger.
They are unwilling to acknowledge that this isn't working.
What did they do after the 2008 collapse?
Yeah.
They did nothing to change it.
Yep.
Now, the 2008 collapse comes from a couple of different things, and a lot of people argue about it. But one of the big arguments we have to talk about is forcing banks to give loans to people they wouldn't give that bank to. This also applies to our college tuition thing, where everyone's guaranteed money for college. Everyone is guaranteed to get under the foister of a loan, where prior to that, you would go to a bank and the bank say, all right, let me see your grades from high school. All right, looks good. What do you want to go to school for? Oh, I want to go to school to study art history. And they'd say, your grades aren't that good.
Yeah, you're not going to make enough money to pay this back.
How are you paying this back? Where now everyone's getting these loans they can't pay back because they're getting a degree in something that doesn't apply. Before that, banks would be pretty stringent. You're not going to be an engineer. You're not going into medical. You're not going into business. We don't want to give you a loan.
Yeah.
Because you can't pay it back. But anyways, so 1929, Roosevelt seized upon and confiscated the gold coin, any raw gold. They say gold coin holdings, but any gold holdings of all the United States citizens.
And were these gold coin holdings in banks and things?
Banks, deposit box, mattresses, backyards, and mason jars, whatever. He made it, if you didn't turn it in, you could go to jail. I think it was for 5 years.
Ooh.
Okay. He took the gold away at, if I remember, this shooting off the top of my head, at $28 an ounce.
It was a forced sale of the gold.
He confiscated. He stole from the people, stole wealth, and turned around, I think it was 8 months later, and put the gold out on the market for $33 an ounce. And it kept going up after that. Since the Federal Reserve has come up, the dollar has lost, I think it's something like 110% of its buying value. This is a part of that. But it's not just FDR. It's not a Democrat Republican thing. They're all, I think it is when you give control over to people. One man can't control an economy of 50 men, let alone an economy of, at that time, 275, million. But that's what happened. So he confiscated the gold. A lot of people kept their gold hidden. They made money off it. The gold, you're allowed to get it back later on. But, it took a while. Now we're going to talk about, I'm going to hold this for a little bit from now. We're going to go to a news story. This has got to be my favorite news story right now, because anyone who's listened to this show for 7 minutes knows that I am a giant nerd for dinosaurs and all that stuff. Okay, so scientists have taken a 2,800-year-old woolly mammoth cells and brought them back to life. Huh?
This is the slope, people. I need you to recognize the slope. We are on the verge of Jurassic Park.
It's a baby woolly mammoth, and they're bringing it back to life. And I think that it would be fun to pet this baby woolly mammoth. Yes, it might be a scourge, but look at that face. But anyway,
where does this end? Where does this end?
I don't know. Just don't bring back big spiders.
Oh, man.
Let's leave the bugs off. Maybe see if you can't make Tyrannosaurus Rex a herbivore, and then we can have a hunting season. This could go cool.
This is insane.
But yeah, they brought the cells back to life. I wonder how long before they throw this and an elephant that's alive today, mix them up in what is it called? A CRISPR?
A hybrid.
And start making CRISPR. That's the
salad spinner thing.
No, the CRISPR is where they make the clones.
They call it a CRISPR?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would argue
it's probably an acronym.
It's probably already been done.
But we'll see these dudes wandering around. Let's reintroduce them into Canada. They're a communist country. They can deal with it.
I'm sorry, Canada.
Yes. Don't be sorry. That's what they are. They've got to get through their she-session and their she-covery. Anyways, so FDR confiscated that money. Now, FDR was a president that they tried getting Smedley Butler to go after. Smedley Butler turned him in. Smedley Butler was a Republican.
So I question the
FDR?
integrity of Smedley Butler. Do you think he knew what he was doing and did it anyway? Or do you think...
I think he was a Marine that when
he was a company man.
He was a Marine that maybe when he looked back on his life afterwards, wasn't pleased with what happened. There were some other things that happened. Congress were kind of coming in to shut down the Marine Corps while he was I think first time he was a 1-star general at the time, so he was a brigadier general at the time. And Congress is saying, we have an army, we have a navy, we don't need a Marine Corps. His father stepped in, who was a senator, and shut that down. But I think when he looked back on it, and especially after these businesses tried to start the coup, he said, wait a minute, what was this about?
What part did I play?
I don't know. Have you ever looked into the sugar cartels getting the scientists and government to say that fat is bad and sugar is good?
Yes.
And this is a fact.
That was a huge campaign.
They
billions of dollars were pumped into that campaign to redirect the consumer's way of purchasing. They did it with the milk industry too, to redirect the consumer's way of purchasing towards sugar, and away making it a hotter commodity, taking its stock price up, and away from fats.
And when I say sugar cartel just means a group of different companies that work together. It doesn't mean drug dealers, no, but that's how we use it.
Yeah.
Sugar cartel is a group of different companies working together, which technically the cartel word for drug dealers comes from a group of different farmers selling their wares in another country, and through middlemen. Anyways, so we got to go into the media. The media is what would be our bulwark against shady stuff happening in our economy. They would be the ones that would let the news out and all that other stuff. And the media,
they were designed to be the guardians of truth.
They're the fourth estate for a reason. They're the ones that's supposed to hold government officials accountable. But we have time and again, right now, if you are watching any media without a skeptic eye, you're quite frankly, you've got a blindfold over your eyes.
And if you're watching it with a skeptic eye, you have to understand that there are masterful techniques being played. The idea that if it's said 3 times, your brain views it differently. If someone else corroborates it, your brain views it differently. If someone who you view as important says it, your brain views it differently. So even if you have a skeptic eye, you have to remember that these little markers, we know well, have been studied by neurologists and psychologists and physiologists. They create a response within your brain that you may not recognize. And the media knows this.
Well, and what if the media has been bought by either ideology or money?
Yeah.
I'm going to give a perfect...
that's the scary question.
I'm going to give a slight example. There was a guy for the New York Times. His name is Walter Durante. And if anyone doesn't know what the Holodomor is, you should look it up. It's a planned famine that the USSR did to the Ukraine. They wanted to kill them off. They wanted that land. They wanted to kill all the kulaks there. Walter Durante was the New York Times Moscow representative, and he won a Pulitzer Prize for the lies he said. That's why Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Prizes mean nothing. They mean they have devalued what they are. I mean, right now, if you're with the Nobel Peace Prize groups, you need to take a serious look at giving Obama the Peace Prize before he was even president. And then he went in, and there's a reason they call him Obama.
Yep.
He was a mass murderer. But anyways, so Walter Durante came in and argued, oh, no, they're not killing anybody. They're not killing anybody. And then when the truth came out, Pulitzer says, oh, well, we didn't know. Durante says, oh, I must have made a mistake. But he knew this stuff was going on. He was the lapdog for Joseph Stalin. I would argue that the most evil human being in modern existence.
Yeah.
I mean, he beats them all, except for Mao.
Yeah.
But Mao's evil was because half the time he was retarded.
We're giving Mao a little bit of credit.
I think Stalin actually ordered the execution of more people. But anyways, so the media is out lying to people. All this stuff, it's just crazy. You can't find a bulwark. And then we have 1944, the Bretton Woods, New Hampshire Agreement, which was the agreement that made the U.S. dollar the world reserve currency. If anyone doesn't know what the world reserve currency is, what that means is that whenever two foreign nations are going to trade with each other, they do it through the U.S. dollar. So let's say Saudi Arabia wants to buy dental products from England, and England wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. They do it with the dollar. They make their trade with the dollar, never a trade straight across. Though on a funny note, I think it was 1998, a fellow by the name of Saddam Hussein made a deal to sell oil for the euro
instead of
and I would
using
argue
the dollar.
I would argue he had 5 years.
Yeah.
And then that timer started. But anyways,
that's a fair argument.
That's what came out in Bretton Woods. So that made our system, our money, the money of the world. And then we're going to fast forward to 1971. So 1971, France is sitting over in France. So what they would do is they would send us gold and we would send them dollars under the agreement in Bretton Woods that at any time they could call for their gold back and just give us back the equivalent in dollars.
Is it current market price or
$35 an ounce? That was the market price that was held until 71. That FDR set up after he stole it at $28. Come out, set it at 35. So he stole wealth.
Yes,
is what he did by stealing that and then inflating it. He stole wealth. But anyways, France is looking at they've got these vaults that are full of dollars, but all their gold's gone. So they call us and say, hey, we're ready to trade back. And we're like, oh, come on now. So if I remember correctly, England jumped on board, but England did something a little stronger. Now, this is England, mind you, and this is in 1971. Actually, it was in 1970, I believe, when England did this. They drove a warship into New York Harbor.
Ooh, a message.
We gave England back their gold. And then Richard Nixon came out and said, we are going to temporarily end dollar convertibility into gold and implement wage price controls. So we got the people of America got taken off the gold standard in 29. The world got taken off the gold standard in 71. What the gold standard did was it held, when I say dollar to gold at $35 an ounce, it held the dollar to a standard.
Right.
So we were supposed to have had.
The dollar had an actual value.
Yes. And once that was taken off, the dollar was allowed to be inflated even more. And I believe this is the beginning of the 2008 collapse.
This all seems to me like a big mistake, but do you think it was an intentional way to manipulate markets and influence?
Well, let's this is all just kind of a buildup. This is the history class.
Okay.
But first, another quick news story. So Pfizer is working on a pill to help fight COVID-19 that's designed to keep people out of the hospital. And if effective, it could help reduce the strains of healthcare system that it experienced over the last 18 months. On Wednesday, Pfizer announced that its first participant had entered the second of a 3-phase study of the oral antiviral that's intended to keep people who aren't at risk of developing serious illness after contracting COVID-19 out of the hospital. So they're looking at
So you're not in a high risk population,
and it's a two
but
pills a
they're
day.
creating a pill.
So is this
to protect you?
Is this after you contract the disease? This is a treatment.
No, I mean, this says the antiviral is intended to block SARS-CoV-2 from replicating. So, I guess it could be.
So this is a treatment after you come in contact with SARS, or is this just now you take 2 pills a day for the rest of your life?
Mm.
Is this just everybody takes 2 pills a day for the rest of their life? So what happens if the supply chain breaks? Is there a term limit on this? How much money is this going to cost? Who pays for it?
I don't believe that this rush to get to market medication is, I don't think it's appropriate given the really, really low mortality rate. And I think this is another grab for that.
Again, how do you destroy a civilization? All right. Now we're going to go off onto a different one, a more recent one, Lifetime. This is in our lifetime. Okay, so President Obama in 2012 started purging officers out of the military. He purged 197 field grade officers. This is major and above out of the military. Major
on
if you're Army
grounds?
or Marines. I would argue most of them were political grounds. And then we wonder, how did we get Milley in charge of this Afghan exit that turned me? Which, granted, I'm on the team leave Afghanistan.
Sure.
Smartly.
I'm on the team. We shouldn't have ever been there. And let's get out as fast as we can.
Everyone compares it to Saigon. But it took 2 years for Saigon to be taken over by North Vietnam.
Much worse than Saigon. This happened within hours.
Weeks. Why is it that the air base was deserted at night? They just left at night and didn't tell the Afghani commander or the British that we were leaving.
Yep, the Allies.
Why was it that we didn't start making arrangements to get civilians out 3 months ago?
Yeah. Now they're defending that by saying we sent messages to all of them and told them to leave. But no, you start making, we evacuate and then we say, you guys better get out of there. It was
or we evacuate and say, you guys better run that tirade through the only built up city in this whole nation.
Yeah. It was a surrender. You could tell that by the amount of military equipment left behind.
I'm okay with the surrender. I'm kind of bummed out about leaving all those guns behind, while at the same time saying we need to disarm, the populace here.
Yes.
Which I'm going to make an argument. Never the Second Amendment is on display right now, because what is going on in Britain today, what is going on in Australia today. Those are two of our closest allies, first world nations. They have flushing toilets and they are being locked in their homes. The only reason we are not is because we can defend ourselves. The reason we have that Second Amendment,
armed.
That Second Amendment is to stop a tyrannical government. That's it. Let's talk, but anyway, so Obama purges those officers, those field grade officers, majors, colonels. I imagine a colonel at that time would now be at least a lieutenant general or maybe a major general, right?
These career guys, sure.
So I want you to think about that. He purged military command out so that in the long term, it weakens us as a nation. Now, I'm not saying he did, but points that way. This purge started after Benghazi, 9/11, circa, 9 years ago. Anyways, let's do another quick. I don't want to come down on nothing but pharmaceutical companies, but let's talk about Bayer. Okay,
Bayer's a pretty big player. I know we hear a lot about Moderna and Pfizer and that right now, but Bayer is a big player in the medical industry, which crosses over into blood and plasma, pharmaceuticals, medical devices. all kinds of things. Bayer's an extremely large player.
Go ahead and read that first paragraph to me. We're reading this from the AHRP.
So this document goes on to say an examination of internal Bayer company documents by the New York Times reveals that the company was engaged in unsavory, probably criminal marketing practices. The document reveals that Bayer continued to sell contaminated blood plasma, causing thousands of hemophiliac patients to be infected with AIDS. Think about that for a second. This is not Bayer recognized that the blood plasma was carrying the AIDS virus and then pulled it. This is they knowingly continued to sell this contaminated blood plasma to hemophiliac patients. The company continued to sell the contaminated blood in Asia for over a year when it had already introduced a safer heated blood plasma version in the US and Europe.
So they first started, if I remember, I'm shooting off they first started selling this drug in the US. It was found out that this drug contained AIDS in it. Not this drug, this
plasma,
blood plasma. Mm-hmm. So they said, oh, but we've got a whole stockpile of it. So
let's send it to Asia.
So they sent it to Asia so they wouldn't lose profits.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is knowingly. This isn't.
Yeah, knowingly done.
They knowingly did that because they had created a way to heat the plasma, maintaining the integrity of the plasma, but
killing off
disinfecting it from the AIDS virus and many other things. Actually, this heating the blood plasma was pretty revolutionary. So they knowingly did not.
They didn't want to lose that product.
Yes.
They wanted to sell it. So if I remember, first sold it here, problem found out, went to Europe, problem quickly found out. I think it was in France. So then shipped it to Asia and kept selling it for a year.
Yep.
They looked for a market that wouldn't find out.
Yeah. So
they could offload their stock.
And you have to remember, I know a lot of us look at blood donation and plasma donation as this gets donated and then goes direct to consumer. There is a stock type inventory, just like the stock market of plasmas, and there are these large contracts that are made between the collection and management agencies of plasma and other countries and large organizations and hospital groups, and it is traded, and prices on plasma are very competitive. It is a market where you go in, the Red Cross shows up, you think you're doing this really great thing, they take your blood, you're like, I'm going to save, somebody from a car accident. That blood plasma and blood that you donate goes into a stock-like exchange program where it is bid on, and there is a ton of really dirty politics in that world.
Well, that's everything. I mean, that's everything. The cattle markets are notoriously crazy.
Yeah.
But this is just saying, I'm just pointing out that this medical company put its profits above life.
And so that has happened many times.
I would say that has not happened rarely.
Yeah.
I would say that's the standard. But I'm rounding this out to say, if I wanted to destroy an economy, or if I saw and I don't think a president destroys it. I don't think
way higher, way higher. Up.
I think those are mouthpieces. I think the people in charge of this, we wouldn't know their names. I like you hear Soros and the Koch brothers. They're not in charge of this. I think there's who owns.
They're just another arm of that.
Who owns the banks that own the Federal Reserve?
Yeah.
Who owns them? Now the media is coming out and pushing this story on us and hyping up The virus, when the virus's numbers shouldn't have the reaction that we're giving it.
Not
But
at
the
all.
media is hyping it up. And then again, I mean, let's look at Cuomo. Cuomo should be brought up on murder charges right now.
Yep.
But
He was a useful tool.
didn't they cover that up with something else? I mean, he touched a young lady that worked for him, which is obviously horrendous. But I would argue that mass murder is worse.
Now, do you think that there's a bigger do you think that a thriving economy funnels more money into the pockets of those at the top than in an economic collapse?
No,
So
they're stripping us dry. You know,
so what's coming that they would say, "Oh yeah, we hit the button, time to collapse."
A lot of people argue. Now, Trump, I disagreed with on many things, but when he said "Make America Great Again," I agreed with. And I think my feeling from it was in the 60s, a gas station attendant could buy a house.
Yeah.
And support a family
can you
with
imagine?
a wife and kids. A regular small-time salesman at a local grocery store.
The guy who sold encyclopedias door to door had a 3-bedroom home.
And nowadays, it takes two parents grinding and
super long mortgages.
I would say that we've lost the plot on something. Our money is filtering somewhere. And I don't know where. But if I was in control, here's how I would do it. One, I would guarantee that if you look at the shareholders of the pharmaceutical companies, the shareholders of the media, the shareholders of the big tech monopolies, and the shareholders of the Federal Reserve, I'll bet a lot of names match.
You could get one DNA test and list them all together.
Either exact names or family members.
Yep.
I would almost guarantee they match. So what if they see, okay, this economy has played out?
So like perhaps there have been all of these little building blocks that show them it's been played out. It's not been a concentrated effort to collapse the economy. They just recognize it is collapsing.
They recognize that it can't go on forever. There's too many idiots coming out of college calling for Marxism. There's too many idiots on the other side calling for whatever else. People want,
humans. Okay.
People are idiots. This economy is not going to survive. One thing George Soros has done has supported DAs. That's been one of his big pushes, getting DAs in.
Yeah.
And his DAs aren't prosecuting people that commit violent acts.
Right.
Because they're committing violent acts for...
He's the circus clown of this, yes.
He's one of the circus clowns of this. And so we've entered a state where we have no law, no order, and we're crumbling. China's growing. We entered China into our markets thinking we would liberalize them, and well, that didn't pan out quite right. When we brought them into the World Economic Forum, it kind of made us more like them. And China is, if you want to know what fascism is, China is, as Mussolini designed it, fascism. Mussolini designed fascism, and as he designed it, that is China. And I'm not saying fascism is good or bad. It's bad. I'm not saying that, but that is what it is. It's a command economy where people are just tools for a government.
Yep.
You're not an individual. You don't have your own wants and desires. But anyway, so if I was to do this, one, I would get my media arm in to betray the people in being honest. Right? Check. I would.
So is that just to create dissension?
You need the media, one, to create the fear.
Okay.
And
check. Done.
Check, all down the board, right?
Yep.
You need to buy off the governments, turn a blind eye to obvious things that should have people hung, such as when they were selling AIDS blood to Asians.
Yes.
People should have been hung for
publicly hung. Yes.
that is mass murder, right?
Yeah. On some of the most vulnerable of the population.
And with the fear, you build up this desire where everyone is going to give you money. Either they're going to give you money through their pocket, their insurance company, or their government. And right now we're seeing the government cover it. I would lay money in 3 months we're going to see it move to where our insurance companies cover it, which is going to drive up everyone's rates.
And let's remember that the government does not have a profitability model.
The government doesn't have any money. They're spending yours. Right now they're spending they're spending your grandkids' money.
The government is paying for this. Hashtag you're paying for this.
And there's a big push to make it mandatory, because if everyone has to buy, imagine if I owned a company where I built a widget and everybody on earth had to buy one.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, everybody on earth had to buy two.
Well,
and then they had to buy a booster widget 6 months after that. And then it got to where they had to buy a widget twice a year. Everybody on earth, 7 billion people. Let's just do our nation. 370 million people is the rough estimate.
Mm-hmm.
What are my windfalls looking like?
Billions.
Think about that. And it's forced on people. And then I come up with a pill to add that price. Right now, the Pfizer drug, I believe, is $19, $20, right? And the other two are around $10. But what if I get to force everybody to buy what I have?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want you to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether you're pro or against, think about forcing everybody to buy it. When CNN just reported yesterday that natural immunity built up from catching
the
this
wild
come
virus.
from the CDC, from catching the virus, appears to be more effective than the vaccine.
Yeah.
And we have reached 83% either natural immunity or vaccinated. Wasn't herd mentality or herd
herd immunity.
Herd immunity is supposed to be meant at 80% per last time.
Lower herd immunity.
Well, he said 65 and then he upped it to 75. Then last time he said 80%.
Right.
The Dr. Fatry, hallowed be his name. Wasn't that the last one he said? So we've surpassed that. Shouldn't the conversation be over? But what if the shareholders need to keep that fear? So the shareholders tell their media, keep that fear alive. Tell the government, keep that fear alive. Matter of fact, and then the media and the government meet together in that goofy ass room. And what do they always ask about? We have some big stuff going on in the world, huge stuff. Right now, if you go to buy electronics or
a car,
automobile parts,
drive by your local car dealership.
You know what's going on is a lot of those parts, those cars aren't getting shipped out because they haven't built a fender. It's because electronics.
Yep.
And where are our electronics from?
And
they're from Taiwan. And Taiwan is under siege right now. And next time you see Psaki up there talking and you see your friends in media down on the ground, pay attention. How often is Taiwan mentioned?
Never.
We either need to figure out how to bolster Taiwan's position in their economic market or do our own stuff over here. I am against going to war. I think war is a racket.
Yep.
It just sends a lot of boys home to mom in bags, and we don't want that. But we've got to figure out. We need to loosen regulations here to bring some economy back. I don't care. Whatever. But everyone's paying attention to what is this president doing? I mean, the evil Cheeto pissed half the people off. Now, Grandpa Dimensions pissing the other half off. I'm pissed at both of them.
Yeah.
We didn't take any real steps towards, and it doesn't matter. A good president would come along and he would be held against him by the other side. I mean, by the governors of the states on the other side would do everything they can to stop that growth. And I would argue, look at Swalwell. Remember that guy we talked about him farting on camera?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he had that girlfriend that was a Chinese intelligence agent.
Yep.
Let's talk about Feinstein with her two, what were they, Pakistani intelligence agents
Pakistani.
doing all the IT for the Democrat Party in the House.
Yeah.
She brought him in. And so they're still in all the IT because we have thrown our faith into morons. You know, we've thrown our faith into ugly celebrities, and that's what they are. I mean, we've got to quit putting faith in politics. If you can't shake your politicians' hands, don't throw faith in them. They're not working for you.
And we live in a society of ease, and so it's important to recognize that although it is more difficult to go searching for the information, to read congressional records, to see how people voted, to understand, you have to know that the narrative that is being fed by the media has to go first, as far as I'm concerned. You know, if the tide is going to shift, the media, all of them, without exception, have to be run out, because they're not telling you the stories that matter. And the stories they're telling you half truths and with spin and to support a narrative.
Yeah. Well, and so to round this out, if I was going to destroy the world, I would try to strip an economy as it collapses so that when it starts over, I would be in charge. That's it. And that's what they're doing. That's my thoughts on what they're doing. I shouldn't say it. That's what it appears they're doing to me.
Yeah. Just it's a money grab knowing that it's falling anyway.
All right. We should run through some comments real quick before we close this out. We are going to, man, we were supposed to save some of that spicy stuff for the after show.
Yeah.
But anyways, we'll do some after show. We'll get even spicier and mention stuff outright.
Yeah.
So on the name of how to end the world, Paul says, some say fire, some say ice. I say either would suffice. Yeah,
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. Hello, my experiences. Well, hello, James. All right. Paul Blake again. Ryan, hi. We're getting like
one theory that Carl Sagan had is that civilization reached a certain point and then destroy themselves. You know, I thought about that as we were
filter.
I thought about that as we were talking, that it is inevitable, and those who are paying attention to the inevitability of it recognize that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And it's likely they also recognize the contributing factors, and perhaps in a way to slow it or speed it up, they contribute money and effort into pushing those factors to the forefront. You know, the rioting, the shortages in food, the supply chain.
What are we looking at right now? We're staring down the barrel of shortages in food. We just went through a shortage and expansive in price in lumber. Fuel's up. It's going to remain up. All that stuff. The great filter, another thing we didn't mention. If, as it's theorized right now, the coronavirus came from the lab in Wuhan, remember, that was paid for by us. That means we sent them a request.
Yeah.
Make me this.
Study this. We want it to do the following.
Was it released on purpose would be the big question after that. But we made it.
Yeah.
So what if, and
when the woolly mammoths come trampling through,
that's what I want. I want a woolly mammoth.
We need to recognize that.
I want an annual woolly mammoth hunt. I want a woolly mammoth pet, a farm, if you will. Like there's bison farms out where we live, all over the place.
There is
bison farms. I know they were supposedly extinct, but we got them everywhere. You can go buy the meat and everything else. But I want a woolly mammoth farm. I'll go out there and brush him and get a blow dryer and hum,
make him super puffy.
Ooh, suave. But yeah, the great filter, man, that's a thing. And
most of us kind of go along in our lives and we just kind of go with the flow, and okay, now a new job. All right, I need a little more money, but there has to be a group of people that are.
That's what the media is supposed to be.
Yes.
And we've got to, don't watch Don Lemon. Don't watch Don't any of these popular ones. Don't watch them because, I mean, if they've ever lied to you once, if they've ever said something that you've had to question once, you've got to turn your back on them even for a time so that they learn. Wait a second. I've got to come honest with these people because if I lie to them, it's not going to fare well for me.
And you have to recognize the spin, like with the Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
They didn't lie. They said he's taking a drug that's meant for horses.
He's taking horse medication.
That is not a lie.
Yeah,
but it is a spin on a widely recognized, widely used drug. And if you don't know that, if you haven't gone out and done the research on ivermectin and you take that at face value, that spin it gives you a perception of the situation that is not accurate.
Yeah, I mean, look what the LA Times said about Larry Elder the other day. And Larry Elder, I like him just fine, whatever. I don't know the guy, but Larry Elder is a African-American Republican.
They called him a white racist or something.
The black face of white supremacy.
Yeah.
That writer should have been fired before she put the period at the end of that sentence.
Yeah.
Because that is just blatant. She should be writing for the damn Onion.
Yeah.
If the Onion wouldn't hire. So that's what I'm saying. The media is lying to you. So you got to pay attention to all that stuff.
Yep.
Christy says, drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah, we should. But I mean, in the end, regardless, I think they're going to get what they want. There are too many people who are sleepwalking through their life.
And I think at this point, given the stage that we appear to be in, it's just a matter of self-preservation to even talk about these things.
It is. And you know what? I mean, honestly, if we don't get, and we're a tiny, minuscule dog shit channel on YouTube. If we don't get canceled for this,
we're going to.
I will be surprised. I will be surprised. We've been hit once before when we did a show. It's odd. We did a show on adrenochrome.
Yes.
Just talking about the conspiracy theory surrounding it.
Yep.
And we got smacked for that. We can talk about aliens all day. I'm doing Kegel foo on the side. Nobody cares. Talk about adrenochrome. You get hammered.
Yep.
Laura says, like in California, they will donate blood with COVID-19 vaccinations.
Yeah.
I wonder what that means. Are they you can't donate blood unless you have it? I read somewhere that if you've had it within 6 months, you can't donate blood.
So it's the plasma. So right now, or last I read, again, look at me like anything else. Anything I say, just do your research.
Past me a little bit.
But there was a point in time where blood was fine, but plasma, if you had the vaccination, and it may still be like this, you could not donate plasma because there is a carryover effect in the plasma from the vaccination.
And so someone might be, say, allergic to it or have a bad reaction. They're giving them plasma to save their life, and they swell up like they, played with wasps.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland controls all the central banks worldwide, but who controls them?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's right, Dot. I agree with you. Someone controls it. I agree. There is some craziness going on, and send us a message afterwards, because if you got any information, we'll just bring you on the show and have a chat. I would like that.
Goes on to say, in the 1950s and 60s, healthcare and higher education were paid out of pocket and were higher quality.
That is right.
100%.
That is right.
Because you had skin in the game.
Well, yeah, 1976 was when they started the Department of Education federally. Since then, you can track it. They've actually got bar graphs and everything else. The cost of education gets higher every year, and the value coming out of U.S. education gets lower every year. It just keeps happening. So, yeah, you got to have skin in the game. I agree completely. I do want to do one day a good show on the Department of Education, start out maybe at Horace Mann, come all the way through it, talk about Dewey and all of that.
Those kept in fear are easily controlled. That's the point. If you are in a fight or flight mode, we can predict with great probability which direction you're going to go. And if we
Mhm.
offer you a solution,
And I need to have two solutions.
yes.
One for if you fight, one if
If you flight, you got the mandate. If you flight, you've got
Yeah.
the vaccine. If you fight, you've got the mandate. And that is because they're taking psychology into consideration with all of these. The psychology of a person after they see it so many times. What is their reaction? After, what do we have to do to notch this up? Oh, put grandma on. Talk about the children that are sick.
Mhm.
50 times the amount of children that die from the virus die from a heart defect every year. And don't even get me started on
What about
vaccine issues.
What about obesity in the U.S. kills what, a person every 30 seconds in the United States?
No, crickets. Nobody's talking about that.
That's great. How about when Florida, member of the media last week was telling you, Florida set a new record, 900 cases a day of death. No, they didn't. That was Florida adjusting its numbers for something like a 6-month period.
Yep.
The media straight up lied to you because DeSantis is going to be one of the faces up against whoever the Democrats put in. And let's face it, CNN and MSNBC, they're just a Democrat mouthpiece. If you're watching CNN and MSNBC, that is the lowest of the news.
And let's be clear.
And I'm not a fan of Fox, but those are the two lowest.
If you dug really, 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 really deep, I bet you would find that the same people that contribute to CNN and MSNBC are also contributing to furthering DeSantis's career for the sake of having a villain to talk about.
That's a good point. Yeah, the media is hurting now that the evil Cheeto is out.
Yeah.
Okay. Socialism works for the socialists until they run out of other people's money. That is right. I think Maggie Thatcher said that in the 80s. Also, socialism works for 5 people. It doesn't matter how big your populace is. It always works for 5 people.
At the top.
If you've got 5 people in your populace, it works great for everyone. Add any more, it still works great for 5 people. Toxin cause illness. Viruses are really exosomes, I should have had Betsy read this. I am not near smart enough. Toxins cause illness. Viruses are really exosomes. Did I say that right?
Exosomes, yes.
God damn, I'm getting good at Anyways, which attempt to neutralize toxins.
Viruses are interesting.
Yeah, and some of them react different. Like when I looked into the Spanish flu, it was the cytokine storm in the healthy youth that killed people. This one, it's elderly people that die. So I don't know. I don't know what the difference. I am not smart enough to handle any of this. All right. If a president ever tried to help the people, he'd be JFK'd. That is right. That is right.
They have to know that going in.
Yep.
I don't know why anybody would ever sign up for that job.
On the other show, when we talked to Spike Cohen after it was over, we clicked off the recording. I said, I got one question for you. I warned him ahead of time. Stick around for a minute after. I said, if you guys get in with the libertarian message, even as kind of watered down as their libertarian message is, I said, how are you guys, what are you guys putting in place to stay alive? Because, her message.
They're coming for you.
Yeah. I want you to think about that. Remember this, the OSS was started by the big colleges, business schools, by Harvard and all of that. That's the OSS who made the CIA. What makes you think that these big business college schools aren't going to have the CIA, the offshoot of that, work for big business? And I'm a pure capitalist. But I think when you get involved, when you have armed people changing the direction, you've lost the plot.
Yep.
All right. The media is controlled by 6 corporations. That is true. 6. And then how many of those corporations in the shareholders groups, how many can you say, Pfizer, Ford Motor Company, Disney, Disney/ABC.
And we're talking,
how many of them group across all of them?
And we're talking the worldwide media, not just the United States, the worldwide. So now as we're seeing this play out in Afghanistan, if you're listening to reports from Afghanistan, the media there the narrative they're playing is Biden walked out. They are pitting their people against us, which makes me think that this was all done for conflict, so that there could be a mass conflict, because they're the same media. They're the same. It's the same people, but they're giving different narratives to each side.
Yep. All right.
Comey is crooked.
Cuomo. Yes, he is. He is. He murdered a lot of people. Well, it's not just him. You got Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Whitmer up in. And that's another one. We need to do a show on the damn Whitmer thing. What do you have? 18 people? 12 of them are feds? Come
Surprise!
on. Is that honestly? I mean, if any of you have ever studied Cohen, we should do a story on COINTELPRO one day. I should just do a history podcast, and then we could talk aliens.
We've talked about that. Yes, the elite don't want to end the world; they just want total control by any means.
That's what I mean. They're ending a society so that they stand on top. I mean, are we staring down the barrel of a possible modern day feudalism? And feudalism is where, as that creepy bastard at what's his name at Davos said, you will own nothing and be happy. Is that where, that's feudalism, where a lord owned the land and your house and everything else, and you work the fields.
And you won't even know that they've taken it.
Well, we're moving that way.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on right now with them buying up all the houses in the United States?
Writers are told what to write and get approval after they do.
I'm sure.
To the victor go the spoils.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, it's not just that. They go to college, and we see these colleges are just storming out retarded Marxists. You could send a
They're just all rolling out of
healthy, normal child into college, and they will come out thinking Marx was the second coming, and Marx, if we ever did a show on him, is a horrible human being. I mean, if you want to follow communism, Bakunin is the guy to look at. Never look at Marx. He god awful. Leave his child out on the street after he knocks up the housemaid. Scum who just spent all of his wife's money, all of his wife's family money, all of his family money, just spent it all and never got a job. He was so bad. I mean, the communists didn't want him around. He was god awful.
Well, and then these graduates go into our high schools. Look at that guy in California that was fired, I think yesterday or the day before. He had a picture of Mao, a picture of Mao in his classroom.
The largest mass murderer in history, and he had him in his classroom.
And not as a way to show them, but that.
I'm sure at 13, this guy was a normal kid, maybe liked to ride a bike.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe like to play Xbox. Do kids ride bikes anymore?
Mine do all the time.
Well, because mom makes them, but other kids, I rarely see. When I was a kid, it was all about the bicycle. That's how you were graded in
Tucker
life.
gets home from school, hops on his bike, and then I have to find him as dusk settles. Yes.
I still like what our sister-in-law does. She has a walkie-talkie for her kid, but he's a busy boy.
Yes. A
family in Switzerland controls the Bank of International Settlements, and that's great. We need to chat about that. The bank. Oh, okay. Here's another story. Media lies from the other side. When Obama sent the money to Iran, what did Fox News tell you it was for?
I don't remember.
They told you that he was paying them off. You know why Obama sent the money to Iran? I don't know what it was at $187,000 or something. I don't know, whatever it was. It was because we should do a whole nother. Here we go. All right, 1961. Kermit Roosevelt, nephew of Teddy Roosevelt, goes over to Iran, foments a revolution. Bam, bam, bam. Multiple leaders. Then they go through a natural revolution, their own against the Shah, and overthrow that government, which was our government, because we went over there to support BP, because Great Britain asked us to, because Iran wanted to have an equal amount of money taken or received from their oil, and not have all the money go to British Petroleum in London. And so anyways, during that revolution, Iran had bought some equipment from us. They had
Mhm.
paid for it. We were supposed to deliver it. If I remember correctly, it was some aircraft and a naval ship, a cruiser or something. Anyways, they had paid for it. And when they went into revolt, we just confiscated that money. Well, Iran went to the Bank of International Settlements and won, saying we had to return that money after what had been 32 years or something like that. And that's why he delivered the money back. But Fox News told you it was a payoff because he was in Iran's pocket. No, it was because we had to. If we wanted to stay in good with
Iran
our banker overlords.
and the banker. So he who wins the war writes the history. Yes.
Fact.
And he who knows, he who has taken, I mean, what if there are people at the top who have done the history, who have dove into the way societies fall, and they are seeing this collection of events kind of playing out again? What if he who wins the history, or he who wins the war writes the history, and he who sees the war coming collects the spoils?
Yeah. Well, and I also think they do think tanks. You build a big think tank.
Oh, yes.
You gather people together and you stay dynamic. All their plans are dynamic. If this happens, we can do this or this or this.
Right.
and
If
we
these
can
three
spread it
indicators
around.
are met, then mathematically there's a 60% probability that this will happen. Absolutely. If they don't, then they are predicting history or predicting the future.
It's not just nationwide. They do it on the state levels. Everyone's seen those groups of media where you've got different states. You have KSL here in Utah, and I don't know, what is it, POTATO up in Idaho, and HOTSUN down in Arizona, and they all say the exact same thing
same
at the
verbiage,
exact same time. So that's what we're looking at. And honestly, if you're a reporter, you've got people telling you what to say and how to say it, how you're supposed to feel. You want to keep your job. Why do you think they make so much money? Those reporters make a lot of money. They get a lot of opportunity. It's not just money paid, but they get opportunities. I mean, when they have the opportunity to make a commercial with a business and then market it on their stuff, they probably make even more. I mean, they are living high on the hog. They're gained access because they are the mouthpiece for who has the cables of power. And this is where the internet comes in, and where all this, I get all of my news. If there's something I'm interested in, I like to see what's trending on Twitter, then I'll dig into it some more. I like to see what's going on the different podcast sites of people that I trust. Usually I like it with a comedy spin, vulgar and crass, but that's how I like it. But I look around, and then I always, if there's a story that catches my eye, I look for the contradictions first, because that's fine. If a guy has an opinion, I'm okay with that. I just want to know what the contrapoints are on that so that I can kind of form my own opinion, like the Texas thing right now. Everyone's up in arms. But if you read the bill, it doesn't do anything. But everyone's up in arms about it.
And they're up in arms because the media has spun it.
Has told them either to be pro or against.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They spin it both directions.
Yeah.
It's not like there's one evil media that's spinning it a negative way. No, they literally spin it, a half a turn for this, and then a half a turn for the other, because they're owned by six. That's it.
Yep. And those six have shareholders that are in all the other stuff. And
they are beholden to their shareholders.
Yeah.
Get this right.
All right. We're going to finish out these two comments. Sees the war coming or makes the war happen. Both.
Yeah. 100%.
Little column A, little column B, 6.5, up in arms or a useful idiot. And that is the thing. I try to make myself not a useful idiot. And I try to be dynamic in my thinking, that if something I say today, tomorrow there's a hint that I was wrong, I will dig into that and fully admit that. Everyone makes mistakes. It happens all the time.
And just like with this vaccine, I have always said I'm not anti-vax. I'm pro-science. So if it fleshes out that that these studies are they kind of take a swing the other direction, they make an adjustment to the actual vaccine itself, I am 100% open to whatever fits best for me, and I fully believe that everyone should do the same.
And that's the thing. If I get new information, I might get the vaccine tomorrow or next week or whenever.
Yeah.
But right now, I think this is the perfect storm to strip the wealth of a nation.
It sure feels like
perfect storm. The fear is there. The force is there. I think they've tried it with other things, but I think this one, they're like, look at what they did. Remember that H1N1, the pig disease that came out, or the avian flu, or the West Nile virus? They all tried the same thing.
Yep.
But this one worked.
Yep. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. All right, you guys have a good day. We were going to try to keep the stuff, get it thrown off for the internet thing, but
you got it all.
You can't slow me down once I start vomiting all these weird eclectic stuff. But you guys have a good week. Keep your eyes open,
stay
ears
safe.
open.
Have a great week.
Closed.